Hey HVAC pros, ready to dive into the risks your business faces every single day and how to tackle them. We've got some great info to share, and I'm thrilled to have our expert here to help us break it down.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be in HVAC, right? Huge demand. Everybody wants to be comfortable no matter what the weather's doing.
Absolutely. But that growth also brings some unique challenges.
You said it's supply chain issues, new tech coming out all the time, the labor market being so tight. It's a lot to handle, for sure.
So we're painting the big picture here, but let's get down to brass tacks. What do these trends mean for the everyday risks HVAC businesses face? And we're not just talking about keeping those AC units humming.
Right, and one thing that often gets overlooked is vehicles.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, think about it. You've got technicians driving all over the place, often in company vans loaded with expensive tools and equipment.
Makes you think about those accident risks, right?
Exactly, and those can get expensive really quick.
Not just the cost of repairs if a van gets in a fender bender either. We've got to think about potential liability for injuries to your employees or even other folks on the road. That's where having the right insurance coverage is key.
Had a client not too long ago thought they were covered because their employees use their own vehicles for work. Figured the employee's personal insurance would handle any accidents.
Makes sense on the surface, but
Well, one of their techs got into a fender bender while on the job, and turns out their commercial auto policy didn't cover that situation. They ended up paying thousands out of pocket. Tough lesson to learn.
ouch. Yeah, that's a real wake-up call for any business owner, especially those relying on employees using their personal vehicles. Makes you double-check those policies for sure.
No doubt. Got to make sure there are no gaps in that coverage. Doesn't matter if it's a company van or an employee's personal truck, you want to be protected.
Okay, so let's move from the road to your actual business property. Obviously, tools and equipment are vital for HVAC work, but it's not just the big ticket items that are at risk. Signage, supplies, even office furniture, all those things are vulnerable to risks like fires, theft, and vandalism.
And those losses can add up really fast. Imagine a fire ripping through your warehouse, destroys your inventory of copper tubing, your specialized tools, all of it.
Talk about a nightmare scenario.
Not only do you have to replace everything, but there's downtime while you rebuild. You're losing income, potentially missing out on contracts. It's a huge hit.
Our research suggests a lot of these risks actually come from things we might not think about on a daily basis.
Like what?
Well, faulty electrical equipment, flammable materials that aren't stored properly, even extreme weather damaging your building.
That's a great point. We can't control the weather, but we can control how we prepare for it.
Exactly. Being prepared for anything is key.
You're absolutely right. Having a solid plan for fire safety, security systems, even making sure your building is up to code can be game changers. And it's not just about preventing major incidents either. Even a simple break-in, even if they don't take much, the damage and disruption to your business can be significant.
So we've talked about potential damage to vehicles and property. But what about the equipment itself? HVAC contractors rely on some pretty specialized tools, and I imagine when those break down, it's a major headache.
Oh, you have no idea. It's not like you can just pop over to the hardware store and grab a replacement for a refrigerant recovery system or something like that.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Right, these breakdowns mean costly repairs, delays in completing jobs, and sometimes you even lose contracts if you can't get up and running quickly.
One of our sources actually had a case study. An HVAC company's main refrigeration unit went kaput right in the middle of a heat wave. They were slammed with calls, but without that equipment, they were stuck.
Oh man, I can imagine.
They lost tons of potential revenue and even had to subcontract some work, which ate into their profits.
That's exactly when having the right insurance can save the day. Equipment breakdown coverage can help with those repairs or replacements, and just as importantly, it can help with that lost income due to downtime. It's all about minimizing the disruption to your business and getting back to serving your clients ASAP.
Okay, let's get into something I'm a little fuzzy on. Completed operations liability. Sounds important, but I need a little refresher on what exactly it covers.
Sure thing. It basically protects you from claims that pop up after you finished a job. Let's say you install a new HVAC system, everything looks good, but then a few months later there's a leak that causes water damage to the customer's home. Even though the work was done a while ago, they could still sue you.
And our sources had a pretty dramatic example where a faulty installation actually led to a fire. Really drives home the point that even after you've left a job site, there's still potential for things to go wrong, and you could be held liable.
Exactly, and that's where completed operations coverage steps in. It's like a financial safety net, so you can focus on resolving the problem and keeping your reputation intact without the added stress of huge legal costs.
So peace of mind knowing that if something goes wrong down the line, you're not left holding the bag financially.
Exactly. You transfer that risk to the insurance company so you can focus on what you do best, running your HVAC business.
All right, so we've covered auto exposures, property risks, equipment breakdown, and completed operations liability. What's next on our list of HVAC risks?
Well, there's another term that might sound a little unfamiliar, inland marine exposures.
Inland marine. Makes me think of boats and shipping containers. How does that apply to HVAC?
I know, it sounds a little strange, but it's actually very relevant to what you do every day. Think of it like this. Anytime you're transporting valuable equipment, tools, or supplies, whether it's in your company van being shipped to a job site or even just stored temporarily, all those things are exposed to all sorts of risks.
Our research actually had some pretty vivid examples. Things like shifting loads in a truck causing damage, collisions during transport, theft from a job site, even weather damage if something is left uncovered. And let's be real, HVAC contractors are constantly moving stuff around, so this exposure is huge.
You said it, and the potential losses can be substantial. We're not just talking about replacing a stolen toolbox. You could be looking at delays in completing jobs, lost income while you wait for replacements, even damage to your reputation if you can't keep your promises to clients.
So if I'm getting this right, inland marine coverage is basically insurance for your stuff while it's on the move or being stored off-site.
That's the gist of it, and it's crucial for HVAC businesses, especially those who are always on the go.
Okay, time to get serious about security. Let's talk crime exposures.
Yeah, unfortunately, HVAC businesses with all those valuable tools and materials can be attractive targets for thieves. And it's not just someone breaking into your van at night. We also have to think about theft from the office, warehouses, even internal theft by employees. It happens.
And because HVAC job sites are constantly changing, sometimes in remote locations, often left unattended during the day, maintaining consistent security measures can be tough.
Absolutely. You can't have someone watching your equipment 24/7, but there are things you can do to make yourself less of a target. Simple things like securing tools and equipment after hours, having good inventory management practices, even considering security systems for your office and vehicles. All those things can help deter theft and minimize losses.
And it's not just physical security either, right? In today's world, we've got to think about cybersecurity too.
You got it. HVAC businesses are relying more and more on technology, everything from scheduling software to online payments, and that makes you vulnerable to cyber attacks like data breaches or those ransomware attacks.
Oh man, that's a whole other layer of risk we haven't even gotten into yet. But we are running a little short on time for this segment, so we'll dive into those environmental concerns, employee safety, and some final thoughts on how to approach risk management strategically when we come back. We were talking about cybersecurity before the break and how it's a big concern for HVAC businesses these days.
Definitely something you can't just brush aside. I've seen companies hit with ransomware attacks where their whole system gets locked down.
Wow, that's intense.
They can't access anything. Client info, job schedules, even payments. It can completely shut down a business.
Scary stuff. So what can HVAC companies do to protect themselves?
Well, the good news is there are things you can do to be proactive. Strong passwords, using that multi-factor authentication, backing up your data regularly, all essential.
Makes sense.
And you absolutely have to train your employees on good cybersecurity practices. I mean, one wrong click on a phishing email, and that's all it takes for a hacker to get into your systems.
So having a good IT person on call is probably a smart move for HVAC companies these days.
No question. Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about a risk that's unique to the HVAC industry: environmental liability. We all know those refrigerants and chemicals you work with. Well, they can be harmful if they aren't handled and disposed of correctly.
Right, and our sources pointed out the potential consequences of spills or improper disposal, cleanup costs, fines from agencies, even lawsuits.
And don't underestimate the power of public opinion. News travels fast these days, and even a small environmental issue can really hurt your reputation, make it harder to attract new clients, and even keep the ones you have.
Like they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Investing in training, making sure your techs have the right equipment for handling refrigerants, having a solid waste disposal plan, all those things protect you financially and reputationally.
Absolutely, and it's not just about avoiding problems. Being environmentally responsible can actually be a selling point these days. More and more customers want to see companies committed to sustainability, so showcasing your green practices can give you a real competitive advantage.
That's a great point, turning a potential risk into a plus. Okay, before we wrap up, let's talk about the most important asset any HVAC business has: your employees.
Couldn't agree more. Workers' compensation is something all business owners need to know about, but in HVAC, the risks are really specific. Think about it. Your technicians are often working in challenging conditions, under houses, up on ladders, carrying heavy stuff. They face a lot of hazards.
Cuts, burns, respiratory problems, back injuries, the list goes on.
It does. Our research actually had some surprising statistics. Did you know HVAC technicians have higher rates of back injuries than construction workers?
Wow, I did not know that.
It's true. And those injuries are expensive, not just medical bills, but lost productivity and workers' comp claims. Really adds up.
So what can HVAC businesses do to keep their employees safe and minimize these risks?
It starts with building a culture of safety. Make sure your employees have the training, the right equipment, and that they know how to spot and avoid hazards. Regular safety meetings, coaching on the job, clear communication, those are all key. And don't forget ergonomics. Investing in tools and equipment that reduce strain, teaching proper lifting techniques, those things can really help prevent those back injuries we were talking about.
So a healthy workforce is a productive workforce.
Exactly. Everyone benefits. Now, we've talked about a lot today. Accidents, cybersecurity, equipment breakdowns, employee safety. It might feel overwhelming, but remember, risk management isn't about getting rid of risk entirely. You can't really do that. It's about understanding your exposures, putting systems in place to reduce those risks, and having the right insurance if something does happen.
Like building a solid foundation so you can weather those storms, but also focus on growing your business, innovating, and providing great service.
That's a great way to put it. And remember, you don't have to figure this all out on your own. Working with a good insurance advisor, someone who specializes in HVAC, can make a world of difference. They can help you assess your risks, create a tailored risk management plan, and find the right insurance solutions, all while sitting your budget.
Okay, so we've covered risks, strategies, and insurance. But from your experience, what's the biggest mistake you see HVAC businesses make when it comes to risk management?
That's a good question. I'd say the biggest mistake is not taking the time to really understand their risks. A lot of business owners are so busy with the day-to-day that they don't step back and look at the big picture. They might have some basic insurance, but they haven't thought about their specific vulnerabilities or if their coverage is enough.
Kind of like driving without checking the mirrors or looking at a map. You might get there, but it's going to be a rough ride.
Exactly. And when something unexpected happens, that's when they realize they're not prepared.
So for an HVAC business owner who's ready to get serious about this, what's the first step? Where do they even begin?
The first step is understanding that risk is part of doing business, especially in an industry like HVAC. You can't ignore it or just hope for the best.
Like trying to fix a refrigerant leak with duct tape. Might work for a minute, but eventually you're going to have a bigger problem.
Exactly. Once you accept that risk as part of the game, you can start managing it proactively. And that means a two-pronged approach.
Okay, break that down for us. What's prong one?
Prong one is minimizing the chances of those risks even happening. So putting those safety protocols in place, having a good equipment maintenance schedule, training your employees on everything from refrigerant handling to electrical safety, all of that.
Creating a culture of safety within your company.
Exactly. That not only reduces the chance of something going wrong, it also shows your clients and employees that you care about their safety.
Got it. So prong one is about prevention. What's prong two?
Prong two is having a plan for when things do go wrong. Because let's be honest, even when you're super careful, accidents happen.
And that's where insurance comes in.
Absolutely. Having the right insurance is like a financial safety net for your business. It helps protect you from the fallout of those unexpected events, helps you get back on your feet. But remember, insurance isn't a one-time thing. It's about working with an expert who understands your risks and can help you build a coverage plan that works for you.
It can be overwhelming trying to figure out all those different types of coverage, making sure you're not paying too much or even worse, not having enough coverage where you need it. That's why having a good insurance advisor who knows the HVAC industry is so important.
Absolutely. They can guide you, explain your options, answer your questions, and make sure you feel good about your decisions.
Great advice. And here's a tip for all you HVAC business owners out there. Don't be afraid to shop around and compare quotes from different insurance providers. You might be surprised at the differences in price and what they offer.
That's a great point. Don't be afraid to ask questions either. Your insurance advisor should be someone you trust, someone who can help you navigate all of this and make sure you have the right protection for your business. Gives you peace of mind.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with this thought. We've talked a lot about protecting your business, but risk can also be an opportunity.
That's a great way to look at it. By managing risk proactively, you're not just preventing losses, you're actually making your business stronger and more resilient. You're better prepared for change and new opportunities.
So instead of fearing risk, think of it as a challenge, a chance to innovate, to stand out from the crowd.
That's the spirit, turning those potential problems into stepping stones.
Love that. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into the risks HVAC businesses face. We hope this has been helpful and given you some things to think about. Knowledge is power, and by understanding your risks and taking steps to manage them, you can build a successful and lasting HVAC business. Thanks for listening. We've spent this episode unpacking all those risks HVAC businesses face, but now let's talk about what you can actually do about them.
Right. We've covered a lot of ground, from accidents to cybersecurity to refrigerant leaks and employee safety. It's a lot, but you don't have to feel overwhelmed. Taking action is the best way to deal with that feeling.
So let's get strategic. What does a good risk management plan look like for an HVAC business? We're not talking about just writing it all down and forgetting about it, right? This has got to be something you can use.
Absolutely. It all starts with honestly assessing how things are running right now. What are those hazards your technicians face every day? What could go wrong out on a job? Where are the weak spots in your security, your supply chain, even your computer systems?
So taking a hard look at every part of the business, really figuring out where those vulnerabilities are.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get some outside help with this. Someone with a fresh perspective, especially someone who knows the HVAC industry, they can often see things you might miss.
Like having a coach come in and look at your team, they see things you wouldn't notice.
Exactly. Now, once you know your risks, you can start making plans to deal with them. This could mean putting those safety rules we talked about in place, getting better equipment, even changing how you do things to make things safer.
So being proactive, getting ahead of those problems before they even happen.
You got it. And remember, a good risk management plan isn't something you just do once. It's something you got to check and update as your business changes, as new technology comes along, as new challenges pop up.
Like those software updates on your phone, you could ignore them for a while, but eventually you got to upgrade to keep everything running smoothly.
Exactly. Now let's talk about the insurance side of things. We've touched on it, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have the right insurance coverage. It can protect your business from real financial trouble.
But it's not just about buying the cheapest policy you can find, right?
Definitely not. It's about working with an insurance advisor who really understands the HVAC industry. Someone who can help you build a plan that fits your needs and your budget. They'll help you understand all the complicated stuff and make sure you have the protection you need without paying too much for stuff you don't.
And here's a tip for all the HVAC business owners listening. Don't be afraid to shop around. Compare quotes from different insurance companies. You might be surprised by what you find.
Good point. And ask questions. Don't be shy. Your insurance advisor should be a partner, someone you can trust to guide you through this and make sure you feel good about your choices.
So to wrap things up, I want to leave you with this. We've talked a lot about protecting your business from risks, but remember, risk can also be an opportunity.
Absolutely. By managing risk, you're not just preventing losses. You're building a stronger, more adaptable business, one that's ready for whatever comes its way.
So instead of being afraid of risk, see it as a challenge, a chance to innovate, to set yourself apart.
That's the attitude. Turn those potential problems into opportunities for success.
Well said. And that's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you found it informative and helpful. Remember, understanding your risks and taking steps to manage them, that's how you build a thriving HVAC business that's built to last. Thanks for joining us.